Hey, this is American Lawn Sale Fan, and this is going to be a different type of video. This is not really going to be a review of a knife that I purchased. This is just going to be for anybody interested in purchasing this knife, some things to consider. And I am going to be basically taking this knife that I bought less than a week ago. I only carried it for maybe 2 days and just decided it wasn't for me. So just something to think about, and I'm going to be sending this off to an eBay buyer who bought it, got a good deal for it, especially because it is pretty much brand spanking new, never been used, never been sharpened, but I will give it a once over and cleaning before I send it off. And so just something to think about. This is going to be the Colonel Blades Colonel Folder knife.
Okay, so this is the Colonel Blade Colonel Folder knife, as put out by Fox Knives out of Italy. It's kind of hard to see, but you can see that kind of right there. So long story short is, if those of you are familiar with it, this initially comes in a fixed blade pattern. That's what it originally was designed at, and designed to be held like this so that for defensive purposes you would punch and basically stab through kind of a punching action. So it, like I said, came out originally as a fixed blade, and I'd often looked at it, thought about buying it, especially because the fixed blade version is actually cheaper because it's simpler to make. And I ran into the same problem that I always did when it comes to carrying fixed blade knives for everyday carry. It's not even that I have a problem carrying them, it's just that unfortunately most of my community does. Now let me explain something. In the state where I live in, believe it or not, as draconian as the gun laws are, I could carry this thing in a sheath, and as long as the sheath is worn on my hip and it is not concealed, it's perfectly legal. There's nothing wrong with me carrying this around in public. But here's the problem. Unfortunately, the rest of the public doesn't know that, so they see you carrying something like this exposed, and they immediately start calling the cops. And the cops come in, and they don't even realize the gun laws, so they start detaining you, they start looking at you. I'm not making this up. I've seen it happen way too much. I've experienced it. And then they actually sit there and actually try to measure it with the palm of their hand, and they say, hey, you know, this is illegal. It's too long. It's the blade length is too long, and I have to tell them, no, officer, believe it or not, there is no blade length restriction in our state. And then they have to look it up and say, oh, okay, well, and then they kind of drop the matter and they say, well, don't come off as threatening with it. Whatever. So as legal as it is, it's just a pain in the neck. I mean, just everybody gives you dirty looks and so forth. So yeah, I stopped doing it. Plus, because it has to be non-concealed, it cannot be concealed at all. On those hot days when you're just wearing a t-shirt, it's fine, that's no problem. But on those cold days when you want to wear just a simple hoodie or a sweatshirt, you have to make sure that this thing is exposed, and it's kind of a pain. So anyway, when this came out, I was a little curious, but initially when it came out in the fixed blade version, I was like, oh boy, this is going to be the same problem that I run into all the time. So I passed on it. But then I found out later that recently they came out with this folding version. Works the same way. It's just that now there's a flipper and the dimensions are the same. So I'm going to talk a little bit about why I bought this, and a little bit of dimensions, and why I ended up saying no, this is just not for me. Okay, so real quick, the dimensions, if you notice, are very, very compact, which is great. It's only got about a 3-inch blade. Overall length is about 6, so it's about a standard length knife, which is nice. It has this little feature about an additional lock. This is the liner lock, by the way. I have to admit, very ingenious, because you can't just stick an ordinary liner lock here. in order to trigger it. So what this button does, this is not an automatic, it pushes the liner lock out of the way halfway, and then at some point it stops, because now you have to let go of the button and then it comes down. It's not as tricky as you think, because all you have to do is push the button, let gravity take over, and then push the rest down. Really easy. It's a flipper, there's no spring in here, it's not spring assisted, so you can just open it somewhat. It's just the tension from the liner lock, and you push a little bit, boom, it swings out, locks into place. There is this double lock right here, which means that you can no longer push over the liner lock. Now, before people think I'm just kind of poo-pooing on this knife and saying, oh yeah, it's a piece of garbage, no, I am not saying that. All I'm saying is, for me, I just don't really care. It's a personal preference. It looked cool in the videos, I got it, and I said, no, you know what, this is just not for me. For the record, hey, this is basically, the story is a long-time martial artist from Pennsylvania. He came up with this design, him and his sons, and he obviously got a contract with Fox Knives to produce it. This is a very well-selling knife. Most of your online knife stores like Blade HQ, they've run out. They've completely run out. So good for him. I'm happy for him. You know, he basically the designer of this knife wanted to create a self-defense tool, and yeah, make some money on it. Hey, what could be more American than that? A belief in self-defense and a chance to make money off of your own design. Good for you. But for me, it's just not to my taste. And let me explain a couple reasons why. So number one, the theory behind this is that holding the knife like so and just jabbing it into somebody, thrusting it, that would take less, what you would call less training, less muscle memory, less technical technique and so forth. It'd be a simple defensive tool. Well, yes and no. Here's the thing. If anybody's ever studied real life knife fighting, has combed through police reports and seen what happens, knife fighting is as ugly as it gets. And there is nobody out there who says that knife fighting is easy. It doesn't matter how you design the knife. There will be, some technical things that you just have to know. It's not as simple as, yeah, I got this knife, now I'm going to be punching it and so forth. It just, all knife fighting is going to be a little bit scary. It's going to involve a lot of training. So I don't think you can just take this and say, okay, yeah, this is simple, it's easy, and now you got the perfect knife. I just don't subscribe to that. I don't subscribe to any knife design or knife fighting that says that it requires minimal training. So that's one aspect. Another aspect is kind of the flipper design. I don't have a problem with flippers, provided that they are full blade knives. But in this case, there is a little bit of a delay. It pulls out of the pocket pretty good. This ring kind of interrupts a little bit, but not too bad. But now I've got to basically readjust the knife. Now it's true that all knives, especially folding knives, let's just take this one example. I pop it open, and yeah, I'm going to be adjusting it in my hand for a fighting knife. Whether I do it forward grip or reverse grip, there is going to be a transition. The problem is this one takes a little more. Now you could argue that with a little bit of training, there's that word again, training, you could get used to it. But it is a little slow on the draw. If you're going to carry a knife for self-defense, it needs to come out of your hand and almost instantaneous. And the reason being is because if you are legally cleared to use a bladed tool for self-defense, you're basically using lethal force. And what's a litmus test for lethal force? It has to be reasonable. What makes it reasonable? It basically means is that you have a reasonable belief that you are in severe, immediate danger of severe bodily injury or death, and that usually means when you're using a knife that the attacker is already on top of you. The fight is already commenced. Contrary to popular belief, it's not like a guy is going to come at you from a good 30 feet away and pull out his knife and go give you time to go, yeah, come on, man, let's fight. And you're going to pull yours, and it's going to be like something out of West Side Story. All right, usually the attack is already on top of you. Maybe the guy has blindsided you. He's ramming your head into the concrete wall, and you've got to pull this thing and defend yourself. Well, any kind of delay in from the deployment to getting in the right position is not a good one. And also keep in mind that this knife has to be in a perfect position in order to effectively use that thrust. So it's, I don't know, it's not as easy as it seems. Now, last reason why I just didn't feel this knife was for me was this, and this is all personal. Whenever I am given a knife, I don't care if it's a fixed blade or folding blade, I immediately know, or my muscle memory knows, to either go here with a forehand grip or reverse grip to go here with my thumb over here. My muscle memory knows how to basically use it in a defensive manner. It's just automatic. Well, my muscle memory with this one, and like I said, if I trained a lot with it, I probably could get over it, but this just doesn't feel right. It's not really a push dagger. It's not, and keep in mind, I've been a boxer, a kickboxer most of my adult life, so you would think that punching would be natural, but this is not a punch. If you think about it, the best method would probably be something like this. Well, nobody punches like this. If you're punching closed fist, thumb wrap, straight wrist, and making sure that all your bones or skeletal alignment is perfect. This one doesn't allow for that. It allows for kind of this loose hold, knuckles, point with your thumb. So it's not as natural as it looks. I do like that he put a little bit of an angle, the designer put a little bit of an angle to it, but it also means that it, once again, it's not a push dagger. It's not the old 80s push dagger that came through your knuckles like that. It's here, and it just doesn't feel right to me. If you like this and if you think it's great, more power to you, but for me it's just doesn't feel natural. You know, for me this feels more natural, or this. Now, I'm not saying that straight blades are perfect, because yes, the one thing I do notice is, yeah, if you've done any knife sparring, hard knife sparring, you will know that it's easy to lose your knife. So the ring does make retention a little better. So I will give it that. So anyway, that's my take on it.
Hey, so in quick closing, like I said, this is just not for me. This doesn't feel like a punch. It feels more like just a weird stabbing. It's like I'm muzzle punching them with a pistol. I mean, I might as well be doing this. I don't know. Anyway, just not for me. But like I said, I did buy it, so more power to the designer and to Fox Knives for producing it. It's in A+ condition. Like I said, I wore it, but I never used it. I didn't try to sit here and test it out against targets or anything. I just wore it enough to, I've always believed a tool, a weapon, especially a weapon, needs to feel right in your hand. If it doesn't feel right in your hand, then you probably should try something else. So I put it on eBay, and somebody bought it right away. I felt it was a good price, so did he or she or whoever bought it. So I'm gonna basically clean it all up. It's, like I said, I could ship it now, but just out of courtesy, I'm gonna clean it up, dust it out, make sure that it's all in good condition, and that it's going to be shipped in the condition that I got it in, and somebody got a good deal. But like I said, not for me. All right, so American Lonsdale fan, and God bless you and those you love.